want to empower moms to raise world changers, to leave a financial legacy, and for their kids to see them stepping into their superpower. I believe that us moms are called to this. And today on the Rainmaker Family Show, we interviewed a couple that has been married for over 17 years. They're high school sweethearts. They've lived in the U.S. and in Costa Rica while raising 5 kids. They've sold and built 3 different companies, and they are on a mission to empower families with their family systems framework. Today on the Rainmaker Family Show, we interviewed Joshua and Ashlee Latimer, the founders of Honor and Fire.
I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time, and so I just want to jump right in. So welcome to the show, Joshua and Ashlee.
Welcome to us being on your show. No, thank you for having us here. It's so cool. The stuff you're doing is cool. It's life-changing. And I love the fact that you have like a whole herd of kids and you're doing entrepreneurship at the same time. And like you are our people, right?
Oh my goodness.
And young kids. It's hard to do business and be in young kids mode. We had 3 under 3. We now have 5 kids, but I had 3 in diapers at a time.
Wow.
I know my 3-year-old wasn't potty trained yet, but having 3 in diapers and then also basically having a business in diapers was like just madness. I was like, can somebody please start wiping their own butt? Sorry. I don't know if this is this kind of podcast, but like, so we've been in the trenches and we're so glad to be here.
Yeah. And the business also couldn't wipe its own butt, right? But anyway, sorry. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's so good.
I feel like Steven and I are, our second son is now 7 months. And I feel like we're in this good groove of like life and business. But once you're in that good groove, then things change. And for me personally, like I am constantly adjusting my schedule. Like when I came off of maternity leave, I was like, here's my ideal week. I'm going to stick to it. And I was doing that. And now I'm like, I'm out of balance. Like on
time to shift again.
Time to shift. So I'm sure you guys have lots of wisdom as you've grown several businesses and sold businesses and have a whole crew of kids that are entrepreneurial. I love all of that. So cool.
One thing that's interesting though is like having kids technically, it's not really an accomplishment if you think about it. Like the goal isn't to just have kids. It's like, how do you raise world changer kids? And I don't mean how do you put unfair pressure at a kid at an inappropriate age to perform for you as a parent, which is a whole other issue, right? Like a lot of families want to raise their kids to be like, I don't know. They want to live vicariously through their kids. You see like the half drunk dad at the football game screaming at his son because he didn't catch the touchdown pass. And it's because he's trying to relive his glory days or something. Or you have the entrepreneur who's forcing their kid to be entrepreneurial. We're not really interested in that, but we are very interested in trying to be intentional to really raise epic kids that are different. And because society and culture, man, it's so bad. There's so much bad stuff with kids, like growing up today with addiction and pornography and just dopamine and just technology and then depression and broken homes and all this stuff. And then financial stuff and recessions and their parents are stressed and everybody's stressed. It's not easy to do it, but it's worth it.
And I do have something to add to that. I was not raised in an entrepreneurial home. And so when I was raising babies at a very young age, my husband quit his job when my son was 6 weeks old and said, hey, I'm going to start a business. And I'm like, wait, what? And I was raising babies while we started our business. And it was very stressful because I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background. So like security and all these things that like to rear its ugly head came up. But now as I have gotten into the groove of it and raising kids and doing business, lots of different businesses, it's the best freedom and entrepreneurship. Not that we're trying to encourage our kids' entrepreneurship, but we, live it with them. So they have their own businesses, not that we force it, but it's just kind of has this overflow effect.
Yeah.
Like a freedom and overflow. And I do want to give you encouragement, Chelsea. Once your kids learn how to buckle their own seatbelts.
Huge.
Like game changer. That season you're going to look forward to. And it's not that far away when you go to booster seats. Yes. So I understand with the transition in the seasons, and sometimes you can grieve those seasons, but you can also celebrate those seasons. And I'm just going to tell you, it gets better. It just gets better.
That's so good.
Thank you.
And I love being around people like you guys who have that hopeful future mindset. Because how many people, like you're in the elevator with someone and they're like, see your little kid and they're like, well, you just wait. You just wait until they're a teenager and they just project all this negativity. And I love being around you guys. And I remember that from the first time we heard you guys talk, we were we had this little camper van at the time. We were driving somewhere, and I think we were sharing a virtual stage of sorts. And so we did a talk, I think, earlier that morning, and then we were driving, but we had like the speaker link to the event, even though we weren't like conference attendees. So we're like, oh, let's listen to everyone else. And you guys came on, and I remember that talk even to this day, because you guys had that such a hope for families and their future, but also like, I think you guys really carry that authority to be vulnerable, and that really opens people up. And you guys shared a lot about your own story and your own vulnerabilities, and that's something we're really learning in this season to go there, right? To have those hard conversations, to go through those things. Is this something you guys like learned over time, or are you guys always just like so like, you know, open book with your business and your marriage and all those things?
Oh gosh.
Such a good question. I've never been asked that question. Go ahead.
No, I was going to just say, you need to talk about how it started. I know my microphone does not go very far. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But, you know, when Josh was talking earlier about our family being broken after he had it wasn't abandonment, but like he had focused solely on the business. When he came home, the thing that fixed his business was systems. And so he came home and fixed it with family systems. He's like, if this works in my business, what about my family? And I have to say, it's going to get me a little teary-eyed, being vulnerable, first off, helps people. And we really do want to help change the world. We want to be hope dealers and hope brokers. And so, but my husband's a great leader in the way that sorry, I can't even go. He's a great leader in the way that he leads us and teaches us about greatness and teaches us about, you know, like, it doesn't matter where we're at. It's matter where we're going. He casts vision. He casts very clear vision for our family, and we all jump on board, and he's helped with family systems, give our family an identity, and he's really rallied the troops and created a culture inside of our family where we want to really crush it, not just for ourselves, but for the world and for eternity.
I feel like you just gave me an epic testimonial. Thank you for that. Keep going. Tell them how great I am. No, I'm not great at all. You know, sometimes the best movements and messages come out of a mess, right? You've heard your mess becomes your message, and your test becomes your testimony, and your setback is a setup, and all these. Well, they're not cheesy because they're true, right? So pain is an excellent teacher, and I almost lost it all. You know, Russell Brunson always says no amount of success in business can compensate for failure in the home. I think that's so true. Like, I think it's an ultimate flex, right, Stephen? Like, for you to be like, yep, going on date night, like, my family's at the top of the list. Oh, do we make millions of dollars? Are we changing the world? Yeah, of course we do that. But, you know, the real flex is showing up at home. And it's really hard for men specifically, because we want to produce, and we entrepreneurs, we live in the future. We're builders, we're creators, right? And so when my companies finally started working, the reason why was because of systems. You know, I know, like, the Rainmaker family is insane, and there's thousands of people that you change their life. Why? Because you have a formula, a framework, a methodology, a system, right? Success, like, isn't a mystery, and you guys know how to do that, and you teach people. Same thing is true for any other type of business and for families or any organization, if you think about it.
It's so powerful. Like, was there like a time when, I mean, you kind of told us before we started recording, but like, you know, you said like you're kind of on this trajectory. You felt like you accidentally were destroying the marriage. It felt like you were like, oh no. Like, was there a line? I mean, Ashlee, you're getting emotional there. Was there a line in the sand that you guys feel like you drew, where it was like, Joshua, for you to be like, I need to be home with my family? And then Ashlee, for you, was there a moment you remember, like, really where things shifted, you know, in the family? You guys started to see that fruit in the family from these decisions, from this pivot.
Yes. So I had a drinking problem. That was one thing. The other thing was I was a workaholic. And the reason I was a workaholic and the reason I had a drinking problem was because of fear. Okay. Entrepreneurship can be scary. Look, and you got to understand, I come from a family of non-entrepreneurial, very good people. I love them. They love me, but very, very small thinking people, negative people. If somebody had money, it's because they must have done something wrong. Money is dirty. It's evil. Wealth is wickedness, and poverty is piety, right? Like, it's good to be broke. And I also believe that for you to deserve to have money, you must suffer for it, right? Because my parents would argue about so I'm just setting the table on like this basket of false beliefs that were programmed into me. Then I enter marriage and I start doing entrepreneurship. So how could I possibly get money? Well, I have to kill myself on the altar of that business. I have to suffer. And what's really tricky is that there's two perspectives, right? So Ashlee felt abandoned. In my heart, I was laying myself on the altar of my business as a sacrificial offering to my family. Now, that's not how she viewed it, right? So I'm like, why aren't you clapping and cheering for me? Why aren't you, available to me in the, intimate sense? Like, why is it, don't you know everything I do is for this family? It's like the classic dad thing, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
isn't totally true, because a lot of the reasons I avoid being home with the family was also just to hide the stress and the anxiety. And so anyway, just to set the table, when things shifted, in my opinion, unless you fill in the gap, is when we started using the D word, the big naughty D word, divorce, right? That shook me. So I was actually going to move out and get like a long-term apartment, extended stay hotel room, the hotels where you can stay there for a month and they have a kitchenette, I'm like, screw this. And, and it's really God, God protected me from myself. Thank God, since I've been a teenager, I would always pray to God. I'd say, give me wisdom and understanding, because he promises to give you that even if you didn't do anything to deserve it. It's just free. You can have it. Just ask for it. And then I also pray for him to protect me from me. Like I don't want to do the things I don't want to do the things I do. I think Paul in the New Testament, he's like, why do I do the things I don't want to do? And the things I do want to do, I don't do. That was like my life. It's like, I'm doing these bad things. I don't even want to do them, but I can't stop doing them. And from that place of brokenness, we started implementing simple systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So things that, because your business was working at the time, but it was working you, right?
It was starting to work, but it can become an obsession, man. I mean, look, you want to make your first $1,000, it's a dopamine rush. And then you make 100,000, you're like, oh my gosh. And then you make 100,000 a month. And for some reason, like, especially when you come up with nothing, that is like breaks your brain, but it only breaks your brain for a minute. And then you're like, well, 100,000 a month is garbage. I need $1 million a month. Like that's where the real ballers. And then you do $1 million a month. The yardstick never stops moving. So the quicker you recognize that, the more you can like relax and just like calm down. But I see a lot of entrepreneurs just run in perpetuity. I have a friend who's going to be a billionaire, and he's in the garage door business. He runs so hard. The guy's nuts, and he doesn't have kids. He's not married. He's doing his thing, living his best life. But I look at him, I'm like, you're never going to stop. He can't. They're doing a couple $100 million in sales with garage door, and he's just like, boom, boom, boom. And, I've never met someone that's older or elderly that they're like laying on their deathbed and they're like, man, I'm really glad we got the in-ground pool instead of the above-ground pool back in 1989. I did it. I'm about to pass into the other life. So it really doesn't matter after a certain point. And, it's important to recognize that.
I feel like, one of the biggest cultural traps, right, in this season is really that fatherlessness in our kids. Like whether it's dads who are just not there entirely, or dads that are there but they're not there, right? They're not present dad, and it causes this abandonment, right? And so when you started showing up, Joshua, for the family and started to come back in, like I know it's not an overnight change typically, right? It's not oh wow, there was Joshua before May 20th and then there's Joshua on May 21st. But what were some of those ways that you started to lean in, like those systems with the family to really show up? And then, what happened because of that way you leaned in?
Well, I would love to add to this one, because this is actually the moment where I was like, oh, this is fixable. And people think that sometimes it's not fixable fast, but you can tweak a few family systems and have it go very quickly change. And the very first family system, now I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you the real truth, is that we still are business-minded people. Like we still our hustle, and we call them seasons of hustle grind season and then rest and restore season. So we have these cycles that we go through, but we are very intentional when we show up. When we show up for business, when we show up for our kids, we're intentional. But the very first system was Maverick Monday. And Maverick was 3 years old. Maverick Monday and date night. My husband wanted to let me know that I was the most important thing on his schedule, and it was unmovable, unshakable. It didn't matter if we had $1,000 day, $1,000 like thing at that time. because we had a window cleaning and pressure cleaning business at the time. He was like, it doesn't matter. That day is my wife's day. Like, that's where I show up for her the best. And that was like, shut up. It was like a shut up moment. Like, I'm more important than any business deal offering that day. It could be, Elon Musk is calling my husband and he's like, nope, sorry, got my wife. She's more important. And that was a really big bucket filler for me. And then also Maverick Monday. So we now have Maverick Monday, Tucker Tuesday, Judah May Thursday, Finley Friday, and Sawyer Sunday. And these are little teeny times. They don't get the whole day, but they get some dedicated time with my husband. And he is very intentional. He asks them deep questions and really figures out what's going on in their head. What can we do here? They go get ice cream. They walk around the mall. One of my kids loves to go to Walgreens. I don't know why. They just like to go to Walgreens. Like, Dad, can we go to Walgreens? It's like, just stop it. Just stop. It's Walgreens. But
yeah, one of the myths is that to be a good father is that you have to like be Mr. Mom or be home all the time. I think that's not true at all. So it's not just quantity of time. In fact, there's a lot of families that are together every single day, but they're not together. They're sitting in the same room, but they're not connected.
they're like,
Right? They're on their thing. So really, really deep conversations with kids when they're young, asking them things they couldn't possibly understand to get them thinking, getting on if you lay on the ground and play Legos hardcore, like you just go for it and you build something with your 7-year-old, it's like insanely connective and valuable. It's not about just proximity to your kids. It's about being like, it's you and me. What are we going to do? We're going to change the world, right? And those days were time blocks or a system to hold me accountable to do it. It's not perfect, and I would miss them from time to time, right? And it's evolved over the years. But that was probably the single smartest thing I've ever done in my life and the most profitable thing I've ever done for my business. Because when you and your wife get in momentum, we call that's when you become what we call a wrecking ball. And this is like financially, sexually, emotionally, intellectually, everything. Nothing can stop you. Like you can conquer anything, right? And I don't know. I'll just stop rambling. Hopefully there's something interesting in there.
No,
That's so good. Yeah.
I would love to know, because you guys early on were just talking about, I know you've built businesses and sold them and your kids are entrepreneurial without you trying to like force entrepreneurship on them. And Ashlee, you said something that like our family just does things like differently. And I think there's a lot of families and, as we raise our boys, I know that we're going to be doing school differently. I know that we're going to be our life is going to look a little bit different because Steven and I don't have like 9-to-5 jobs and we just want to think outside the box about how we raise our kids. And I think a lot of people are initially like attracted to that. Like they also want whatever that uniqueness is for their family, but there's also a little bit of fear and reservation because one, like Steven and I both weren't grown up in entrepreneurship families. And I grew up in a very like fear, security, like get the job, go to school lifestyle. And so when I'm, looking to the future and being like, well, our oldest son, like he'll probably be homeschooled, but like, I don't want to be the homeschool mom that's doing everything for him. So I think there's a lot of families that listen and can relate to like, they want to be unique and put their stamp on what is the Diaz family. What do we stand for? But there's also a little bit of like hesitation. So I would just wonder, do you guys have any like either mindsets or things that you've broken past to like, we're going to be just who we're called to be. And, we're not going to apologize for it. Or also like, are there things that your family does that you feel like are just really unique and different that you love that have just created that culture of like positivity and becoming those hope dealers that you guys are?
Oh, yes.
Questions.
We have a whole bunch of epic stuff. Everyone needs to like pull over their car and start writing stuff down. And I'll let Ashlee explain some of them, some of our other systems that anybody can do that will literally change your life for the rest of your life. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Well, I'm going to talk about homeschooling in a second, but you said something about being a Diaz. And one of the systems that we activated really quickly is a birthright. So on our wall out there, we have this huge canvas, and my husband created a birthright for our family. And so it talks about what a Latimer stands for. So we are already known as the weird family. We have a family logo.
I'm going to go get the birthright.
Go get the birthright.
Okay. You got to hit this button when they talk or you won't hear them.
Okay? Oh, okay. But anyways, that's okay. I'm just going to take the show here, babe. But we have family logos and family swag, and we haven't always We haven't always homeschooled our kids. We did public schools and private schools, and we've tried everything. But here's the great thing about entrepreneurship is you can pivot.
Yeah.
Some people think that you have to be stuck in this certain way, and if you don't do it right, but as an entrepreneur, oh wait, can you see it?
Oh,
There
I
is
see it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh man, that is amazing. The birthright.
Oh,
There is
so
a birthright.
good.
It's a little blurry, but
No, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read it. Just to give people ideas, because you can make this however you want. But ours says, I am a child of God. I am here for greatness. I am relentless. I am a warrior. And it says, even when it's hard, even when it's dark, even when I'm scared, even when I'm tired, I defend the weak. I defend my neighbor. I defend my family. I defend my mind. I choose wisdom. I choose humility. I choose faith. I choose greatness. I will do hard things. I will read God's word. I will win in business. I will win in life. And the last section says, deliver me, Lord, from false pride. Deliver me, Lord, from laziness. Deliver me, Lord, from fear. Deliver me, Lord, from the enemy. I even get emotional reading it right now. We've had it for years.
So powerful. I mean, like we do a thing with Kai where we'll kind of like after his bath time, we'll look in the mirror, we'll do some declarations.
Mm-hmm.
But how cool to have like, cause like we kind of just go with the flow, like whatever it is that day. Like sometimes it's certain things that day, but like I love that you have really crafted this. Like this is what we carry because you know I always say this quote that like and I don't know who came up with this quote, but I love it that you know those we lead. What is it? Shoot, now I'm gonna forget. What we carry will be reflected in those we lead. Right? What we carry will be reflected in those we lead. And like all that stuff, when I hear you read it, I see you guys carrying that.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that you are going to pass on to your kids, but how cool to give them like words. So then when they're in situations, they remember those words, like, because a lot of times, sometimes we got to train our mindsets, right? We got to like rewire our mind to this thing to say like, no, even when it's hard, even when it's dark. And
yeah,
I just,
it's a transference of an identity. So if you think about a company, like the reason your company is successful is because you've created a tribe that like, this is who we are. This is where we're going. This is the steps to get there. And you've created a culture around it. Same, a family is no different than like any organization. You need clarity. You need vision. You need purpose. You need a destination. You need to know who you're fighting against, right? You need to know who you are. One of my favorite quotes is that if you don't tell your children who they are, the world will do it for you. I'm not interested in Hollywood telling my kids who they are. So I need to tell them who they are. I don't just say, you're my son. I say, you're Maverick Latimer. You were made on purpose for a purpose. You have a mission, a mandate, a purpose, and a destiny. You're a world changer and a job creator and a movement maker, and nothing can stand in your way except yourself. And I'm going to support you and clap and cheer for you until the day that I die. That's what you say. That's transferring a vision into a kid. It's an enthusiasm transplant, a vision transplant. And little kids get this. You know, we treat kids too much like kids. You know, the word teenager is only about 100 years old. It wasn't used in the vernacular back before then, because when you were like 12, you were the man of the house when dad took his horse to town and he might not come back for 4 weeks, right? And it's not about putting adult responsibilities on kids or robbing them of quote unquote childhood, but you know, the way that I look at it is that childhood is preparation for adulthood. You're going to be an adult way longer than you're going to be a child. And if you look at society today, now that I'm all worked up, Stephen and Chelsea, you have 32-year-old grown men sitting in their mom's basement, eating a Hot Pocket, yelling at people on Twitter, thinking that he's doing something. He's not doing something. I'm not against my kids playing video games. We're not like, but the thing is we're training them to be producers, not consumers. And that's good for them because they have more confidence and certainty in themselves. And the birthright is just one of the systems. We also have a logo. Your business has a logo. Why doesn't your family have a logo? We have core values: faith, character, work ethic, and leadership. Your business has core values. Why doesn't your family? We have a Latimer of the Month award. We have all kinds of
I love
it. And why not? Yeah, we have proprietary language. We had shirts made that say "Do hard things." They're just for our family. Probably 80% of the clothes our kids wear has either our logo on it or a saying that we printed on it, even down to a onesie. I have a onesie. Now, none of our kids are infants anymore, but our onesie said, "Do hard things, keep chopping wood. It's not Mount Everest. I am not a victim," things like that. And it would have the Latimer logo on it. So we wrapped our kids in this identity and went all the way with it and never thought we'd be telling people about it. But now it like makes sense because it's really important to get the message out. And so we love talking about it, but it came from a place of authentic brokenness ourselves. And we just went all the way.
I did want to hop on about the homeschooling thing, if that's okay for a second.
Yeah, no, We're
Yeah.
collecting wisdom from high level entrepreneurs. So teach us your ways.
So we do homeschool now because homeschool works with our family, but we're not like stuck in homeschool. If it stops working, we're going to pivot and they can go to public school or private school. Like, I think that's the beauty about being entrepreneurs is you get to decide. And I will say that there will be probably haters. And so you will have to tell them no. And they're not trying to be haters. They just don't know. They're ignorant to what homeschooling can do. And they always say, I met a weird kid once who homeschooled. And you're like, yeah, but have you ever met a weird kid at public schools? Yeah. Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like your kid's not going to be social. There's all these things that people rewind or replay because they're scared and because they love you. Usually the things that hurt the worst come from our family members or our dearest friends who just don't know any better. We call them normies in the most endearing way ever. They're normal people. They just can't understand entrepreneurship. But homeschooling, we've tried different curriculums and different things. But one of the things is you don't have to homeschool them. You can hire a teacher. We do a co-op thing. Like my girls right now are at my friend's house who homeschools. Like we share days. And so she does it 2 days a week. And so there are a lot of flexibility with homeschooling. It fits really well with us. Like our kids went to funnel hacking, like our field trips. And we have just cultivated a culture in our home where learning is our favorite. It's a hobby for us. Like my kids are done with school right now and they're listening to Myron Golden and Alex Hormozy. And one of them's reading the Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis. And we love the Tuttle Twins. And so we get to, someone was asking, like, are you worried about your kids' school? I'm like, my kids get done with school so they can go listen to Myron Golden learn how to sell from stage. I think they're going to be okay. They're social because we go to the post office every day to send our kid war plan out. Like, we do life. My kids are doing life with us. So homeschooling, I'm a big advocate for it. I haven't always been, but I am a big advocate because it's working for us.
Well,
in
and
our entrepreneur
schooling isn't necessarily the same thing as education. Like my goal is that my children are educated, not that they're just indoctrinated by some program someone else built, right? So I'm pretty hostile to the, as Myron calls it, the government indoctrination camps personally, because I think it's horrible. I think colleges and universities even worse. I think there's almost no reason left to go there. I'm not shaming people that did.
Let's go be a doctor.
If you want to be a doctor or an engineer that builds bridges, please go there. But outside of a career field that needs to do that, the education's decentralized now, right? Uber is decentralized taxis. Airbnb is decentralized hotels. You have crypto as decentralized currency. Amazon is decentralized retail. Education is decentralized. Why? Because of programs like the Rainmaker family. There's literally people that never knew any of this that joined your challenge and have changed their entire family tree forever. And they can never not know what they now know, the opportunities that they see because you decentralized education. So we don't need to send them to school. It would set them back. It would take me years to undo the bad programming and indoctrination and memorization that they'd get. School teaches you to not fail. School teaches you, it programs you that if you get it wrong, you get the red check mark and that's naughty. You're supposed to, I used to do math homework as a kid. I get the answer right, but I would show my work incorrectly in their opinion. And I'd still get the thing wrong, even though my answer was right. That's super dumb. Real life doesn't work like that. Real life is about iteration and the data in your mistakes and then building on it.
I love it. The spirit of entrepreneurship is trying things, right? Even when you're not sure the outcome, right? And if we just go, oh, it has to be black and white, it has to be this way, then we don't have the innovators, we don't have the world changers, we don't have the people that are going to go after the big giants, right? And so I love that.
I heard someone say that entrepreneurship is when you take responsibility for a problem that's not yours. Have you heard that?
Yeah. I think that's Ryan Moran quote.
I think that's what you've done, right? You already know how to make money online on Amazon. Like you don't need to tell anybody anything. Like you already did it. You already know how to do it. So you're taking a responsibility for a problem that is not yours. You're not like obligated to solve this problem. Now, the way that capitalism works is that because you've chosen to carry the weight of solving that problem for strangers, you will be rewarded for it. That's what world changer means. Like, can you even imagine the ripple effect that you're having on these people and how an extra $400 a month is a game changer? And like, because you did frustrating, hard things, took financial risk, put yourself out your comfort zone. Like, I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I'm just passionate right now. I love to read books in the woods all by myself. Okay. But to put yourself out there is, it's scary. And now that your thing is this huge epic thing and it's working, it's not scary, but it wouldn't have existed had you not taken responsibility for that problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel
Thank
like
you for that affirmation. You guys, we did not tell them to say any of this. People who are listening, you guys just did that so freely. So thank you.
Because it's true. It's just true. Like, this is the way it works. You know, one of my favorite quotes is that everybody loves the wine, but no one sees the crushing of the grapes. And I don't know about y'all, but I've had my grapes crushed lots of times. My little grapes got like mega crushed many times. Yeah. The thing is like, it's easy to look at where someone's at right now and to dismiss the misery that they endured to have the capacity to be where they're at right now. And so you look at someone and you're like, that's the wine. They have a nice car. Their family's put together. Their kids seem well behaved or something. You're like, lucky. That is such a stupid statement to think in your head, because you can't dismiss 17 years of grinding, and you weren't there. You don't know what they did or what they didn't do. But my assumption is always like even with their kids, if they see like a Ferrari or something, when they see it, they go, oh my gosh, Dad, look at how much value that guy must have created. Mm-hmm. That's how they're programmed to think, because that's actually how it 99% of the time happens. Are there trust fund spoiled babies that get Ferraris? Yes. But did you know that like 80% of all millionaires are first generation, that there's 1,700 of them per day in the United States right now? These people didn't just accidentally, they put in the work, they did stuff, they worked, man. And so when you see the fruit of their success, it's like, way to freaking go, because that person helped somebody somewhere and was rewarded for it with profit. My friend Mike calls dollars certificates of good deeds. And so if you get a bunch of them, unless you're a drug lord or you're the 1% of people who are doing bad things for the dollars, generally speaking, profit follows value. I don't know why we're going there, but it sounded pretty cool.
It's such a good conversation, because I mean, people, if you're listening to the show, like we've been hitting this over and over, because I think there is a mindset shift that needs to happen before you even step into that.
Mm-hmm. Celebrating.
And celebrating, celebrating wealth, because it's not about even the dollar in the bank account. It's what that can be used as a tool for in your family's life, in your extended family's life, in your friend's life, in the people around you's life. Mm-hmm. I think that's so powerful. You guys talk about radical generosity. I love you use that word on your site and your challenge and things like that. And what does that look like for your family, like being into generosity? I think for us, like I feel like there's been seasons where we really feel like sometimes you got to tell money like who's boss. And sometimes the biggest way to do that is like through generosity, right? Where even when it feels scarce, even when it feels like, oh no, like that's kind of a scary amount, it's that act of faith that goes like, boom, like I'm in charge of you. You're not telling me what to do. Tell me about that in your guys' life. Like, what does that look like for your family or even your kids, like making generosity part of your culture?
God, that's so good. The telling the money who's boss thing. I love that. Well, I think I can only speak on this for me personally. So I'm not saying this is how anybody should be. I'm just going to be honest. When I was 12 years old, I was mowing a lawn because I would make money mowing my neighbors' lawns. And I know that God told me to give all my money away. And it was so palpable. And like, I'm not some weirdo that like talks to God all day. Like, not at all. I'm like very logical based, but it like almost knocked me out of the lawnmower as a 12-year-old, because I knew God said, give this money. It was $220, I think, somewhere around there. It was all the $20 lawn mowings I'd saved up for however long. And, but when he told me it, I was excited. And the reason I was excited is because I believe that my purpose for me specifically is generosity. So I'm obsessed with it. I was so excited. I told my parents, I'm giving all my money away. Isn't that amazing? They're like, oh, sweetie, like, don't do that. They, because I'm a dumb kid and they're trying to protect me. I was so excited to give it away. I'm business partners with a guy named Josh Fierstein. Him and I have a company in Texas called Radically GL LLC. And it's a holding company, right? So we have equity in different things and we kind of place it in there. And it stands for Radically Generous Living LLC, but it also stands for the initials of one of my business heroes, which is a guy named Robert G. Letourneau. Okay. Most people don't know about this guy. There's a book, an autobiography by him called Mover of Men and Mountains. And he lived on 10% of his income and gave away 90%. And this guy's a legend entrepreneurially. And he invented like the earth movers. He invented 80% of all the heavy equipment that was used in World War II, where we definitely would not have won unless he had over 300 patents when he died. He only had a 6th or 7th grade education. And he was just this radically generous person. And I just want to do that, like, because none of it matters. It's all going to burn one day. It all goes away. Nobody's, we need to do stuff with it. So that's like the burden I carry. And so it bleeds onto my family and stuff. I don't think everybody's supposed to maybe be that extreme with it, but that's my deepest desire, is to do that.
What happened as a kid when you gave that money away?
Well, another interesting teaching moment from that is, at the time we went to this little church, and the church had like 15 people, and it was dysfunctional, and it was a bad church. Okay. The pastor of this little church weighed about 600 pounds. His family was chaos. His daughter ended up getting into like the occult and became an atheist, and and I'm just a kid. I know that God told me to give me this money to this guy. Okay. There's a point to this. And all the people at this church would like just stand outside the church and smoke cigarettes with each other and then go to church. So on the one hand, it's like beautiful because it was a very flawed group of people trying to like figure out how to follow God. But then on the other hand, when I was older, I started thinking, oh, God didn't tell you that. You're just a dumb kid. He didn't tell you that. Why would he tell you to give this money to this guy who clearly didn't do anything good with it? The church fell apart and dissolved, right? But you got to understand, like when you do work, there's the work you do on the work, and then there's the work does on you. And when you give, okay, there's like the person you give to gets a benefit, but that's not even the game. The game is what happens in your brain. And to expand it's the act of obedience, and the act of jumping off the cliff and like building the plane on the way down, that feeling of like, that is powerful. And so I think that seed being planted young in me set the table, because even in high school and everywhere, when we would date, I'm just like, always being generous. I can't not be generous. And if I wouldn't have obeyed, I don't know if that would have happened. And that's like my purpose in life, man. I could have missed it.
It's like not that strings attached, I'm hoping to get something back giving.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, hey, there's more in this for me than it is for you.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm not responsible for it after it's released. As I've gotten more mature, I also believe in this concept of what I call unsanctioned giving. So I think sometimes generous people can irresponsibly give. And I've done that too. And that's bad, right? But you have to give and give and give and give and give to arrive at that conclusion. But some people are overly generous to their own detriment, or they're giving for false ulterior motives, which I've also done a million times. And you're learning, right? So what's really tricky is to know exactly when to give, how much to give, even if it scares you, even if it's little, or when not to, even though it seems obvious. That's just another level of like obedience, to God.
I would love to know from you guys if one of your kids has ever come to you, or I guess what would you tell a mom who has their kid come to you and they have this like big dream, whether it's like, this elaborate trip somewhere, or like, mommy, like I want to go to space. Like that's my big dream. I don't know if your kids have come to you with those kinds of like ideas or conclusions that like right now in this moment, like either you didn't have the resources to get there, like, right now, Steve and I don't know if we could like go to the moon, or like climb up in the tree, or like throw the kid as high as he wants to be thrown. Like, how do you respond when your kids come to you with things like that? Because you don't want to say, no, that's, Stephen and I say we have this how can I mindset. We never want to say I can't do that. So like, how could you make this happen? So what do you guys say in response to your kids? Because you want to instill big dreamers, entrepreneurship. What would you guys say to your kids, or have any specific stories where that has happened?
Well, we definitely have something. And I'm actually going to have my husband talk about how we do that. But like one of our sons who's 14 years old, he wants to be a billionaire. And so it is like, how can we do that? How can we make a plan for you to become a billionaire? Like he dreams, and my husband is really good at, setting expectations and clarity. And like, but my kids are also, they saw at ClickFunnels, they saw people getting the Purple Heart Award, or the Two Heart Award, where you give $1 million. And my kids were like, we don't care about the 2 Comma Club. I mean, like 2 Comma Club is cool. Sorry, Russell Brunson, if you ever hear this. The 2 Comma Club is cool, but we want to be the first kids to give away that 2 Heart Award. Like that is cool. And so like, so how do you do it, babe? Because my husband's very good at this.
Well, first of all, they don't have, if they want to give away $1 million, I think they're probably like 990,000 short. Okay. So it's not like, So on the one hand, I think your knee-jerk reaction when kids say crazy things like that is to be like, well, hold on a second, let's be really reasonable here. That's like the normie way to deal with it. And if you're raised by normies, there's a part of you that's like, you can't want that because that's not possible, because I don't believe it's possible. And you want to protect them from being disappointed. You don't want them to feel like you don't want your kids to be delusional, right? And like, oh, yes, you can go to space. Can I do it right now, mommy? Oh yeah, totally. Let's do it right now. Okay, let's do it. And then you don't do it. And then they're devastated. That's bad too, right? So how do you manage expectations? So you do it by leveling with them. So what I do sometimes, it depends on how old they are, right? But like my daughter Finley's 7 and she wanted to make this invention. She's like, Dad, I want to invent this vehicle. I'm like, okay, what is it? What is it? She described it to me. It's like octopus legs and it has these buttons that don't make any sense. And it does all these impossible things. And it can go underwater and fly and go to space, of course. And I'm like, so I told her, I was like, that is so interesting. I said, here's the next step. I need to have a picture of it. We need to design it. What is it going to look like? How long are the legs? Where does the button go? What color is the button? And that kept her busy for days, right? So she's like, I'm doing that and showing me the thing. I'm like, interesting. Okay. I'm like, how will it roll? Because it's got octopus legs. So it can't, what do you think? Like, how can we solve that problem to make it so it will drive on the ground? I don't know. What about that? And I'm coaching her. And so she's making it and making it and making it. Oftentimes they get excited about something else before we finish that thing. Or they come to the logical conclusion that, I'm not ready to execute on this right now. I don't know trigonometry and I'm not an engineer because I'm 7. So I can't do this right now. And I'm like, hey, listen, you can do it. It's not a no. It's a not yet. That's cool. Right. Things like that, conversations like that, but let them take it as far as they can. So if Tucker said he wanted to make $1 million, I'm like, cool. How much is that per day? How much is that per hour? How much is that per week, per month, per quarter? Like, let's reverse engineer that. And then how does someone that's only 14 create enough value so that 1,000 people give you $1,000, because $1 million is just 1,000 thousands, or it's 10,100s, or it's 110,000. I'm like, what? And so he's thinking through these thoughts, and I don't talk 80 miles an hour like I am right now with him on this. And he's like, yeah, I need to learn more stuff first. I'm like, that sounds reasonable. Like, what do you think? Where should we start? I have suggestions, but what do you think? And they'll get there, right? But never once would I ever, and never do I, tell them they can't do it. I'm like, of course you can do it if you're willing to like pay the price and suffer and sacrifice and have the mental capacity. And like, who do you have to become to be able to do that? Well, that might be 17 years worth of stuff you got to do, or it might be 2 months worth of stuff you got to do.
Inviting them into the journey. Yeah, that's so cool. And there's who they become in the journey. Good job, man. That's good fathering. I just love hearing it. It's
if your kid wants to go to the moon, you're like, that would be, I would like future pace with them and fantasize about what it would be like to be on the moon. I would pull up Google image. I do this all the time too. Like, get pictures of the moon, get different perspectives of the moon, look at different sides of the moon,
What are we gonna eat on the moon?
Figure out what we're going to eat. Like, what lunch are we going to, you go all the way with the vision of it. And then it's like, all right, how do we do it? How do we get there? Then you're like, hey, Billy, I've never been to the moon. I don't know how to get there. I know we can. I know some people have been there. What do you think we should do? I don't know. Maybe we get a rocket pack. Oh my God. That's a great idea. Where do they sell those? Let's go to homedepot.com. Rocket pack. Dang it. Nothing here. Amazon, rocket pack. Oh, it looks like they're only military use. What is military? Boom. Now we're on something else and he forgets, or you just keep doing it because it's good for them.
It's like nurturing that seed and letting it go as far. It's so cool. I feel like it's what God does with us when we're like, I have a business idea. He's like, tell me more about that. It's such a good father to do that, right? Not to shut down and like let me just put a cap on that. Let me put my own beliefs on that. Because who knows, like sometimes these childlike ideas are the thing that they're going to be doing, or it's going to be the thing that leads them to the thing that makes the $1 billion, right? Like we never know. And if we stifle those things, we put out that flame, like we'll never know.
Have you guys ever seen the flea experiment video? It's a 1-minute video on YouTube. Just type in the flea experiment.
No,
okay.
I'll do that right after this.
And they put fleas in a jar. Fleas can jump, I think, like 6 feet or something, but they put them in a jar. And so they can only jump, this far, like 4 inches, and they hit their head on the lid, right? Well, if you leave them in there long enough, you can actually take the lid off and they won't jump out. But the crazy part is that when the fleas have baby fleas, the baby fleas also won't jump out. Okay. So like that limiting thing goes to the second generation, right? Now, is this experiment real? I don't know. Okay. There's a really cool video. Some people argue online. It doesn't matter though, because the thing we're talking about is observable truth. You see it when you see kids that come from broken homes. You see kids who grow up in the inner city. You can see the programming and the self-limiting belief. Some people literally can't see the opportunity. They can't see it. It's not that they're so stubborn that they won't see it. They can't yet, right? So I don't want any limits on my kids. And I don't want them to be delusional, but I don't want them to have limits. And they're smart enough, even when they're really young, to come to the conclusion, I'm not ready to build my octopus car quite yet. I need to, put a pin in that. And then that's not a limiting belief. It's just a conclusion she came to, like, yeah. And then I'm like, I agree. Let's circle back on the octopus car,
This is so good. I feel like we could talk to you guys for hours. I was joking. This is like going to be a Joe Rogan 5-hour podcast, but I know you guys got family, you got business, all the things. I think our audience, like the Rainmaker family, would be so into some of the things you guys are doing. So I would love to just take a second, if we could, to talk about a couple things. I want to talk about the war plan, like the kid war plan. I want to talk about the branded family challenge. I know it's two things, but I feel like our people, when they hear about these things, like I feel like I see the kid war plan ad like at least once a month. And I'm always drawn in this like video, and it has these kids in black and white, and they're looking at their screens, and their eyes are just like becoming like these like spirals. And it's this culture that is so prevalent that we just get sucked in our phones. And even as parents, we do this in front of our kids. We're teaching them, hey, when you have a down moment, just grab your phone and disappear, right? And the kid war plan is this pattern interrupt for your kid that's going to take them and empower them in a way that's exciting. So tell them what the kid war plan is.
That's amazing. So happy to do that. So the kid war plan is actually a family project. The video you just described with the black and white, my 15-year-old son made that entire video and edited it himself. So like from the whole conception, right? Because we actually did this as a way to teach our kids how to launch a business. I taught them kind of everything. Like we did it all ourselves. They still ship them out to this day. What we didn't realize is that we'd be in 19 countries in all 50 states and continuously run out of them because people were buying them like crazy. And our kids get paid a royalty on it, or Maverick does. And so it's a 90-day journal for kids, but it's peculiar in a couple ways. First way is it's handmade, literally all of it. It's leather. And even the paper is handmade. It's a nightmare process. They hang it in sheets. It's a whole thing. The kid war plan like logo is hammered in with a hammer and a nail by a human being to emboss it. Every single one is different. The straps are different sizes. Sometimes we get them, the page is upside down in it, which it seems like a flaw. It's not a flaw. It's not a bug. It's a feature. Like the reason we did it handmade is we wanted to feel like it came out of the Lord of the Rings because it needed to feel epic. It's not just another book to throw under the bed of a kid. And really the people that do the best with it, they get the best results from their kids. It's the way they present it to their kid, the frame that makes it work. So they get the thing and they sit them down like little Johnny. He's like, Johnny, I see a lot of potential in you. And, some people might think I'm crazy. Most parents wouldn't do what I'm about to do for you, but I made a big investment in you. And I got this insane handmade leather transformational journal. It's called the Kid War Plan. And then if you want to grab one, I'll read the Kid Warrior thing. But then you open it, it's got this like manifesto thing, and the parent and the kids sign it. And then they begin. So that's the frame. It's just a daily journal. It gives you structured daily routine for your kids. It teaches them one word a day that they're not going to learn about in school. Like what is capitalism? What is socialism? What is money versus what is currency? Because it's not the same thing. But it says, Dear Kid Warrior, did you know that you possess a master key to your future truth? The Kid War Plan's a hazardous journey. It's not for the light of heart, but the rewards are magnificent. This is a particular kind of book because when used properly, it can change your life forever. The Kid War Plan was carefully designed for kids who are rebellious defenders of truth, wisdom seekers, relentless and honor-filled fire questers, independent and epic future world changers. And it goes on and on.
Come on, that's so good.
We did it because, and it's $100. So it's like a really high ticket book for kids. Mainly because it's handmade, but also because when I was teaching my kids how to launch a business, I said, you have to stand for something. It has to be polarizing. I need people to be mad that it costs $100. That's why the ads are profitable, because 50% of the comments are people arguing about, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Well, you spent that on a video game. Why not buy your kid a book? You're a terrible parent. No, you're a terrible parent. Oh, this is ridiculous. I can just print off a blah, blah, blah. And so they're watching, observing it, right? And from the copy to the funnel to everything, it's just been this huge gift. Do you have any clarifying questions
The
on that
really
one?
cool thing that came out of that is that my son that's 15, he made a kid war plan video series that goes with each day. And so it's like a YouTube thing, but he learned the skills to produce those. So he filmed them, edited them. And so now he's actually working in our studio. We have a thing called War Plan Studios here. And he's actually working with our team because they're like, hey, we need Maverick, because that's how he's developing some of his skills. So today, homeschooling,
Yeah.
Maverick is working in the studio on a little field trip.
Yeah,
So
with a client.
Wow.
like, doing
with a
it.
client, like
That's
doing
epic.
real
Oh my
video
God.
editing. So
Well, tell him
So-
I love his ad and I need to hire him.
yeah,
That's so cool. Okay, so kidwarplan.com.
Where do you have like family? I know you guys have different Instagrams and stuff, but where do you feel like people can connect with you there?
Probably the best way to connect with us would be, I guess, right now on Instagram. The reason that I'm answering this weird is because we've been dark for about 2.5 years. We sold a company.
that sounds inappropriate. That sounds like we like went to the dark side.
Well,
That's not what he means by that.
We weren't trying to be findable. I had sold some businesses. I wasn't doing a lot. So actually, we're in the middle of doing all kinds of epic, crazy stuff. Like we have this video production studio called Warplan Studios. We have Warplan Technologies, which is a software company. We're launching a podcast called the Warplan Podcast. I just bought warplan.com. What? But there's nothing really on it yet. And so Ashley launched this thing called the Unicorn Squad. So we have all this cool stuff about to happen. So there's not a specific call to action, but you can look us up on social media and connect with us. And, or you can go to honorandfire.com. And that just has general info on all these different things.
Cool.
I was checking that out. Honorandfire.com has all the links right now, for everything that's around. And we'll keep the show notes updated as you guys are launching stuff. Because if you relaunch this thing, let us know. We'll blast this out to our people. But thank you guys so much for being on the show. Like, it's so fun to connect in person. Officially, I feel like there's such an alignment in, how we're both empowering families to step into something more in this season. So thank you guys. And definitely, if you're listening to the show, connect with these two, find them all over the internet where you can find them, and stay tuned to their stuff because they got big things coming.
Thanks. You guys are the
Thank
best.
you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.